Well, one of the projects that came completely out of left field when James Gunn made his announcement was Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Let's take a couple of minutes to talk about everything we know about this project, how it's going to tie into the greater Superman mythos, what we can expect, and how it'll tie into the new DCU. Well, back in January, James Gunn confirmed that one of the movies on his new DCU slate was Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, we weren't given a lot of details about the film and when it'll enter production. All we actually know right now is it's set to release between Batman, Brave and the Bold, and Swamp Thing, really making it a very interesting palette cleanser between two pretty dark projects from DC Studios. Now, the release date for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is currently completely unknown, so don't let anybody tell you different. And while nothing has been confirmed by Warner Brothers, as of right now, the film is expected to release in 2027, so we have a really long time before we really start getting some concrete details. Now, this makes a lot of sense when you consider Superman Legacy doesn't release until 2025, so that'll put a 2-year window between the two Kryptonian franchises. It might actually be the second appearance of Superman, depending on how the story works out. Now, along with the new Superman, we are going to be getting a new Supergirl. This is kind of sad because we're just about to see Sasha Kelly play the character in the upcoming Flash movie. But honestly, I fully expect James Gunn to recast this character for his new project moving forward. There is a possibility that Gunn holds on to Kelly for the upcoming project and uses her establishment in this movie to kind of build on for his future projects. Woman of Tomorrow is sort of a unique story, we'll talk about that in a second, and honestly, even though Gunn is most likely to recast these characters, he could keep Kelly because the type of story he's likely to tell, there's no reason why she can't move forward. Now, as for story details, we're likely to get something pretty different here. The movie absolutely sounds like it could be more lighthearted compared to movies like Brave and the Bold or Swamp Thing, but based on what James Gunn said about the film during the announcement, it could turn out pretty dark. During the announcement, he actually said, Supergirl raised on a rock, a chip off Krypton, and who watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then comes to Earth. Not the Supergirl we're used to. Tonally, this sounds quite a bit different than what we're talking about for Superman Legacy, and could lean into the dark side that some DC movies really seem to embrace. Now, Gunn has referenced comic book writer Tom King, who wrote the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic book. I have to say, this gives me the general idea that this story will be heavily based on that comic, which, if you haven't read it, is worth a look. I've actually linked it down below. Now, the book was published back in 2022, so it's a fairly new comic, and it's considered one of the best Supergirl comics ever. And honestly, guys, it is a sci-fi romp and something completely different. It actually follows Supergirl, who is contacted by another alien girl who has had her entire planet destroyed and wants revenge on the people who did it. Now, the comic itself features a lot of very interesting and sci-fi characters that are not something fans are going to expect. It also has a little bit of a fantasy element to it, which really would make for a different Supergirl movie. Now, there are some other comic book elements associated with the story, the most prominent one being Crypto the dog, but how this all works into the film and whether the film will mirror the comics or just be inspired by the comics, we're going to have to wait and see. Now, this leaves us with the question of whether Supergirl will be part of Superman Legacy. And honestly, I think there's a small chance that this could happen, but I'm not expecting it. Now, inversely, the question is, will Superman appear in Woman of Tomorrow? And with Superman being used to establish the universe, that seems more likely. Additionally, when Gunn was talking about the movie, he contrasted the two by saying, we will see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, suggesting that whenever these two characters meet, whether it's in either movie, they might not just get along like they always have in the comics. Now, like I was saying, we got till 2027 before we finally get a release, and we're going to probably do a couple more of these videos as we find out more details. I really do encourage you to check out the comic. It'll give you a good idea what James Gunn might be planning for us, what this version of Supergirl might look like, and a completely new take on the Woman of Tomorrow. But we'll have to wait and see.